Project Group is a creative arts business working on public art commissions. We work exclusively with adults with mental health problems who get referred to the group by the NHS. We've been commissioned by Shropshire Council to create 6 pieces of public art for 6 different PFI buildings, so privately financed buildings that are used by the public. And that's a really massive piece of work for us as a social enterprise working with adults with mental health problems. And from the word go, our members were really excited because we're going to involve users of the building on site, and our members are working with those users in workshops to together create a fantastic piece and very individual piece of art for each site.
Our community buildings at present bring people into them for specific purposes. They also provide a venue that is valuable for local communities, whether those be libraries or those be community cafes. And for me, this project really does seek to bring people from those communities into those buildings in a way that perhaps they previously wouldn't have considered. I could have gone and just commissioned an artist to produce a piece of work for each of those buildings. It's not just about art, it's about producing a piece of art by the people who use those services that is identified with that local community, so it becomes something that's identifiable and known and representative of that community.
A good example of one of the projects that we're working on is Abbott's Wood, which is a day centre for people with learning disabilities. And the first time we went to see the building, the users came out and greeted us and wanted to see why we're here, what we're doing, and got really quite excited about the idea of having some artwork in their building.
And our intention very much was to involve as many people as possible in the whole process. And we kind of thought, because the artwork was going in reception, it's going to be quite high up, we thought the theme of flying would be a real good one. And people also said they'd like elements of the ocean in there as well. And
we took our members down on site, there were about 3 or 4, and they did individual work with users of the building, and it was really nice. And the feedback from the group was that it was great that everybody, whatever their ability, got involved in the project, and if they needed a bit of guidance with their hand because they couldn't physically draw or paint, they got that guidance. And then 3 members or 3 users of the building actually came to our studio and physically screen printed onto the final pieces. So they've actually seen the whole process from when they first did just a little bit of colouring in basically to actually putting their drawings into stencils and then onto the finished piece.
It's so many different things really, the project group. I mean, at its simplest level, it's an oasis, I think, for folks who've been badly dented by the outside world, but also a place where that sensitivity can actually become a positive asset, because it's about sensitivity, it's about creativity, it's about moving at your own pace to a different drum maybe. I mean, it's just that haven and a place where people can bring in what are seen as problems, but which very quickly are turned into very positive assets.
One of the main things of well-being is to make connection with people. But then well-being goes further than that. It is about the activities that you do. It's about what you think about what you do. If that's done with other people, you're building social capital, which will support you to do more. And I think that engaging in an art project allows you to do something that can be repetitive, but through the art process, we make that activity special. We notice what we're doing. We enjoy the aesthetic. We start looking for the beautiful things in every day. And I think that is a huge part of well-being. And a lot of self-esteem is learning how to express those feelings, recognise those feelings, and practice those feelings.
The well-being, it doesn't come from a feeling of being relaxed and left alone and quietness and your own space and all those traditional things. And I think it comes through a step-by-step movement outwards in feeling what you're capable of doing. And that always constantly feeds back into your feeling of, I am real, I can make things, I can do things. My self-esteem is getting better. I know that I can do this. I can talk to people. I can relate to the world. I can get a job. You know, it's those little tiny steps of moving out of where you've been holed up that I think art can really help with. Because art is a process of making decisions, isn't it? Constant decisions. I mean, everything you do is a little decision. But it's a decision that's somehow outside of you physically, so it takes you out into making decisions about something else, and it just works its magic. It just builds confidence.
And when you've got mental health problems, whether it be anxiety, depression, psychosis, your thoughts are running along and you've got very little, if you like, control over that. But if you can engage the artistic side of the brain by engaging with some sort of artistic project, you temporarily switch off the dominant hemisphere and you forget your worries. Time seems to pass without being noticed, and that is a wonderful therapeutic experience.
I suppose when I first started with the group, my level of disability was quite enormous, really. In fact, you'd have great trouble actually probably understanding what I was saying, because my speech was very jumbled, even though my life's work had been about communication at a very detailed level with people. So what the project group did was just to give me a focus. It was almost like in free fall, this kind of a hook sticks out and you kind of catch it and go, I've got something to hang on to here. And the hanging on could be something as simple as, here's some glass, let's have a look at what happens when you cut it up and fuse it together. And let's think about the colours and what we might be able to do with that shape. And it's almost like an allegory, really, where you take things that are broken or things that are in pieces and somehow you actually put it back together. Somehow by focusing on a small task and working with something that looks disparate and spread out and reassembling that and creating something from it enables a transformation inside. And that work is a knitting together and a rebuilding. So having that kind of positive expectation and some good role models about is hugely helpful.
Personally, I've come from a scientific background, and for me, using art in this way seemed a really positive way in which we could ensure that those services really became embedded within their communities and that there was going to be a legacy long into the future.
I like the fact that it seems to grow organically out of the ground. I like the fact that it represents the name of the place where these residents live, because it's based around the 4 rivers. So the whole theme is kind of aquatic, with herons and fish and bulrushes and frogs and so on. And the other wonderful thing about it, I think, is that you can't take it in at first glance. You have to walk through it and round it, and every time you turn a different corner you see a different thing, and all the time you want to touch it.
It's intricate enough for the service users that we've got to actually appreciate. It's going to be good for people who can't see so well, they can feel. It loops everything in because it's about 4 rivers and you've got all the river creatures in it. So there's something on there for everybody, and it's going to keep going for a long time, because every time you come out you're going to be able to see different things that you haven't seen before.
I was so excited when I had my first walk around it that I went to get my husband, and my husband has acute dementia, but in his youth he did train as a sculptor, and it was just wonderful to bring him out and for him to be able to touch the wood and to touch the carvings of the fishes and the birds. And even though he has acute dementia, I'm sure he got some pleasure out of it, and I'm sure he kind of understood what was happening.
Working on this project has been very, very interesting and has opened up great opportunities for our members, and it's also opened up shown great social dynamics, because our members, who are often cast as passive receivers and suffer from great stigma, they've become trainers, they've shown other people, they've interacted with other people on a completely different level, and The same for the users of these buildings, who often suffer from stigma, who come from a different vulnerable group, and they've just communicated on the same level because art brought them together. They're working towards a joint goal of creating something beautiful for a building. So workshops like that and the social interaction during a project like this, it's just wonderful to watch, and to watch people flourish through it.
And that to me is what it's all about, getting people to engage. It doesn't matter whether you've got learning difficulties or physical restraints. You might not be able to do everything, but you are able to do something.
People have walked in, and particularly people who have been involved in it, they may have created a small butterfly on the artwork. Well, they can now see that, and I think that's been great from my point of view, because you walk through those sliding doors and you're essentially hit with it straight away. You walk in and your eyes are drawn to it straight away. So what a lot of people have been doing is choosing their favourite panel, and that tends to stimulate quite a bit of discussion. It's made it a lot more vibrant, a lot more colourful, and it's done a great deal to make it a lot more interesting in that reception area.
Public art, to me, is very important, and the fact that people have been involved in creating that public art. Like the day we went to Market Drayton, and we had a wonderful day there. In the morning we were working with service users, creating glass bricks.
It's very lively today. Everybody's exchanging ideas, everybody's getting together. We're working in a sort of a woodcut, which seems to be very good. I feel very encouraged by what I've been doing, because quite honestly, I didn't think that I had anything of the artist in me at all. But it is there, and these people have brought it forward for me and helped me to get something out, you know, that I didn't think I could do, but I have done it. The art in itself is wonderful, but the company and the conversation is so good, so encouraging, so helpful. I live alone, and I find this extremely helpful to keep me going and make me feel better about myself.
Often when a project's finished, it can get better and better and better, because if it's good, it goes deep into people's emotional psyches, and they learn to love it being there and love their involvement in it, and it goes on feeding and building. It might be that the Abbots Wood building can be called the Canopy, because everybody sort of thinks about that so it can have huge reverberation, and it can really label and enhance the sort of feel of a place, I think.